This video is about an exclusive ham radio operators club. It's open to ham radio operators around the world, provided that you've got the necessary qualifications to participate. Now, there's probably some members in your local club. I've been a member for many years. They're on the air on a regular basis, but some of them you may not come across unless you recognise the way they operate. Let's see if we're in focus first. Nope, we're not. We are now. Spit up. Right. So what is this club I'm talking about, the club that hams join? Well, it's actually CW, Morse code. Now don't switch off, or you can switch off if you want to, but don't switch off because what I'm going to talk about is Morse code and CW, but I'm not going to try and convert you. That's a choice that you have and you will ultimately make. Or you may have made the choice already. You may be a CW operator, in which case, welcome. But over the last few months, I've been operating almost entirely on CW. And I did this about a year ago. I thoroughly enjoyed it about a year ago, and I'm doing it again. Why am I doing it? Well, you meet some very interesting guys that you wouldn't otherwise talk to. And there are those that are 100% CW, those that are 99% CW. So all these hams you wouldn't know unless you were on CW. And of course it does mean to say that you need to learn to send and receive CW, and that is the requirement for joining this club. You just need to learn to read CW. Now there's a lot of guys out there which will say, look Peter, I've tried it, I can't learn it, etc, etc. That's fair comment. All I will say is that the secret of learning CW is little and often. If you spend more than 5 or 10 minutes trying to learn CW, you're going to start to sort of go beyond what you're capable of, really, because it's a strange thing to learn. It's not a natural thing that we're brought up with, certainly as youngsters or at school or anything like that. But little and often is the secret. And if you really want to join this club, then it's going to take you a little time to have the necessary qualifications, which is the ability to read Morse code. But there is some slow Morse sent on the bands, and it's a good way of learning. In fact, I learnt Morse code simply by listening on the bands and trying to find stations that were sending slow enough CW for me to read, and that's how I learnt. But anyway, that was that was many years ago. But the good thing about it is that you meet ham radio operators that are operating very basic equipment. Now, one of the rigs that I've suddenly heard people using is the Koga Rooster. In actual fact, that was reviewed in the latest Radcom magazine here in the UK, published by the RSGB. And the Rooster is basically a 2-watt transceiver. Now, it's got a lot of limitations. The most obvious, of course, is it's 2 watts. The other limitation is it's crystal controlled. You're locked to one frequency, and I think the frequency of choice is 7.030 megahertz, and 7.030 is the universal sort of QRP operating frequency of calling channel. It does mean to say, of course, you can't QSY because you're locked into your 7.030. But I've worked a number of guys using this transceiver, and it's so compact, it's so simple. It's a direct conversion receiver, so it's nothing terribly fanciful, but by all accounts it works very well. And I think the price for the kit is something like about £35 or £40. You need to go onto the Koga website to check it out. But that gives you a transceiver, a 2-watt transceiver. Now you may think, well, 2 watts is not going to go very far. Well, in actual fact, I've been amazed at the strength of some of these signals I've been listening to, these QRP signals, particularly from the Kanga. There's a lot of other stations operating QRP 5 watts. But I think what actually you get out of CW, or a lot of operators get out of CW, is going back to the basic communication. It's such a simple method. All you're doing is switching on and off your transmitter. And in order to communicate, you just switch your transmitter on and off with a pre-arranged sequence, dots and dashes. And in the basic alphabet, there's only 26 characters, so you haven't got a lot of you haven't got to learn a lot of characters in order to grasp it. The challenge really is building up the speed. But I've been operating today it's pouring with rain. It's horrible outside, and when I operate on CW, it takes me back to my original days when I was first licensed as a radio amateur. My first transmitter was a crystal oscillator and an amplifier on 160 metres and a manual key which I bought from some surplus shop in London, and that was my transmitter, and I had an R107 receiver. But it was enjoyable, and it's still enjoyable now, because as well as enjoying the skill, you just get this feeling this is a type of communication which is still very enjoyable, even though it goes back to the origins of radio communication, really. I mean, the first communication with radio was CW, Morse code. Digital, of course, digital mode. And it survived ever since. And it's actually, I think the popularity is growing again. There was a little bit of a dip, but it's growing again now. Now let me give you an example of how CW Morse code helps some amateurs, particularly older amateurs, to keep in touch, keep active on the air. It's all very well having all this high power equipment we've got and space to put areas out and so forth, but some operate in very restricted locations and situations. And I was listening on the band a couple of days ago now, on the QRP channel, or around the QRP channel on 40 metres, and I heard this G3 station working, and it was about S7 signal, and I was listening to him, and I thought I'd look up his call sign. I looked up his call sign, and I found that he was operating from a retirement complex, and he said he no longer had the ability to put up permanent antennas, but he was operating from this retirement complex, and occasionally he put out a fiberglass pole out the window with a wire on and run 10 watts of power. And that really impressed me, actually, because a part of me felt sorry for him, because obviously he couldn't do what he once did when he was first licensed. But also I felt encouraged that with low power equipment and with very simple equipment, he was still able to keep in touch. So another benefit from CW. What are the advantages of CW? Well, I think there are two basic advantages. One is you can work stations even when conditions are very bad and the signals are very weak. You can work stations. I know you can do that on FT8, and I'll take that point as well. But on CW you can have a sort of a RAG2 QSO, exchange a lot of information, and even, as I say, when the conditions are really bad, if you screw the selectivity in on your receiver, you can actually hear the stations, get them out of the noise, and that's a bit of a skill as well, picking them out of the noise as well. Mind you, not all CW stations are weak. But the other advantage really is that a lot of stations that operate CW really can't speak the same language as you. They work basically in their mother tongue, but they know enough words in CW to actually exchange information. They can tell you their name, they can tell you their QTH, they can tell you your signal strength, they can give you QRM, QSB, tell you what the radio conditions are like, they can tell you what the weather is, weather temperature, and all that in very basic, simple communication. So one of the other advantages of Morse code, again, is that you're going to work stations you wouldn't otherwise work. I mean, if you were on the air and your mother tongue was, I don't know what it was, I suppose you were Spanish, and you can only speak Spanish, and you wanted to work the world. Well, it doesn't take too long to work out that there's not much you need to know in Morse code in order to have a contact. You know your name, you can spell your name. You haven't got to worry about pronunciations at all, because you're just sending digital information. So even if you only know a few words and you've got a terrible accent when you try and speak English, it doesn't matter in CW. You don't have an accent in CW at all. You just send the text. And I've had conversations with stations all over the world. I mean, they've been pretty short. They just give me the name, they give them a single strength, they tell me what radio they're using, what power they're using, what the weather's like, etc. But it's all simple stuff. And even if you don't speak a particular language, you can actually send Morse code in that language once you've learnt a few basic words. So there we are. It's quite a fascinating method of communicating. Now, as I said at the outset, I'm not here to convert you to CW. That's a choice you must make. And it's something that some people will never master because, well, it's not so much they can't master it, they just don't really feel the need, or it just doesn't sort of attract them. But I believe during the Second World War, when CW and Morse code was one of the prime methods of communication, they were training radio operators in a matter of weeks. But of course, that's all they were doing in the training. They were just eat, sleep, drinking, dreaming Morse code. They had to learn it. But once you've learned it, it's rather like riding a bicycle. Once you've learned it, you don't forget it. Your speed may drop a bit until you sort of regenerate and get on the air again. But once you've learnt Morse code, you don't really forget it. And with Morse code, what you actually finally do is you hear it as a rhythm. You don't hear it as dots and dashes. You hear it as a rhythm. You recognise like V, which is the opening of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, da 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 da, which is V dot 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 dash. And I think most people know what SOS is, dot dot dot, dash dash dash, dot dot dot. That's SOS. So you've already learnt S, you've learnt O, you've learnt V. And what other? Here comes the bride. Q. Here comes the bride. Da 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 da. Here comes the bride. That's Q. So there's little mnemonics you can actually pick up to learn. And I think most people will very quickly learn the letter C in CQ, because you'll hear ham radio stations sending CQ all the time on the CW section of the band. So there's a few little mnemonics you can use to pick up certain letters, and then you just got to fill in the gaps. So there we are. So if you're interested in CW, or you're thinking about it, there's various publications about it. We publish a book actually, The Secret of Learning Morse Code, and there's lots and lots of help on the internet. But it is a club worth joining. It's interesting. It's a skill to be proud of course. And as I said, you will work stations that you otherwise wouldn't work. And there's lots of. I'm based in the UK. There's lots of G stations, GM stations, GW stations, etc. That I work, and I know that they hardly ever go on SSB, and it's really a pleasure to work them, because a lot of them have got some very interesting stations. Some of them are very simple stations, and that is one of the real attractions. You can have a very, very simple station, great for Parks on the Air or for SOTA. It's great for that because the requirement is very simple, and you can actually communicate when signals are very weak. Anyway, there we are. I've spoken enough about CW. I'm sure a lot of viewers will have turned off well before this point in the video. But if you stuck it out, well, I hope it's been informative and maybe encourage you to think about learning CW. In the meantime, thanks for your support on this channel. Thanks for your support at the shop. That's greatly appreciated. We sell anything that you want in amateur radio. We've usually got it in stock. So give us a call. Don't be frightened to pick up the phone, have a chat with one of our guys. I'll be more than happy to help you. We're always adding new products. I gather there's another range of products we're adding shortly. And when they're on stream, I'll probably announce it, but certainly they'll be on our website as well. So keep in touch, look at our website and so forth. So enjoy your ham radio. I might work you on CW. By the way, I'm not a fast operator really. I mean, 20 words a minute is about my limit, but I do enjoy it, and that's the main thing. And if you can only get up to sort of, I don't know, 15 words a minute, well, fine. There's plenty of stations that will work you on the band. 40 metres is a great band. Anyway, I've nattered on long enough. You take care, enjoy your ham radio, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.